Hello my beautiful souls, welcome back to my channel. I am the City Witch and today we're going to be reviewing Heal the Witch Wound, Reclaim Your Magic and Step into Your Power, written by author Celeste Larson. So before I dive into this book, as always, I will be scoring it from 1 to 10. I will let you know if it made it into my magical library or not. I will show you the contents and give you a quick flip through of the book, showing you various chapters and exercises and different things that are included in the book. I will talk to you about the positives and the negatives that I personally noticed as I read the book, and hopefully by the end of this book review you can make up your mind if this is the right book for you or not, and I am hoping I have saved you valuable time, money and energy by the time you make your decision. So without further ado, let's begin. And as always, we're going to start with the back of the book. You were born to live a magical life. Deep within your soul, you know this. It is why you picked up this book. But there is another reason why you now hold this book in your hands, because some part of you feels it is unsafe to fully embrace the magic that exists within and around you. This part of you carries an age-old wound, one that keeps you from claiming your magic, owning your power, and shining fearlessly in your truth. This is the witch wound. Healing the witch wound is not about going back in time or dwelling on the atrocities of the past. Quite the opposite. This work is about taking steps now to reclaim your power, live a more magical life, and embody your most authentic self. This book will lead you through a diverse range of practices, including spellwork, rituals, meditations, and journal prompts to help you uncover and work through feelings of uncertainty and fear. Some practices may not resonate for you, while others may be deeply impactful. Take what works, adapt and customize where you can, and leave the rest. This is your journey. Okay, so let's take a look at the contents of the book. So as always, we begin with our lovely introduction. That's just the author's way of letting us know what to expect from this book, the journey in creating this book, and the concepts and ideas contained within. And then the book is divided into 3 parts. Part 1, The Burning Times. Chapter 1, Before the Burning Times. Chapter 2, The Peak of the Witch Trials. Chapter 3, The Role of Gender in the Witch Trials. And Chapter 4, The Legacy of the Witch Craze. So part 1 of the book is all about taking a look historically at the witch's wound and how it began, how it was created, why it was created, and what impact that had historically upon witchcraft and witches. And obviously we know from the Burning Times 90% of the people burned were not witches, and they were killed nonetheless, and they were killed for all the wrong reasons. But that isn't necessarily the origin of the witch wound, but it certainly added to it in a major impactful way, and obviously scarred witchcraft historically after those events. And it's taken a long time to start to transform people's opinions and perspectives and knowledge on what witchcraft is. So we cover all of that there in part 1. Part 2, Symptoms of the Witch Wound. And this begins with chapter 5, Hiding in the Spiritual Broom Closet. Chapter 6, Muting Your Self-Expression. Chapter 7, Feeling Lost, Stuck or Blocked. Chapter 8, Ancestral Wounding and Past Life Memories. Chapter 9, The Wounded Feminine. And then we go into part 3, Healing the Witch Wound. And this begins with chapter 10, Clearing Energetic Space. Chapter 11, Conjuring Self-Empowerment. Chapter 12, Ancestral Healing. Chapter 13, Healing the Divine Feminine. Chapter 14, Somatic Healing. Chapter 15, Earth Healing. Chapter 16, Moving into Your Magic and Power. And then we end with some closing notes called The Spiral Path of the Witch. And then there is also a bibliography at the back of the book. So skipping through the introduction, which like I said just outlines what the book is for and what to expect from it, we go straight into the Burning Times. So I'm going to point out a few things that's contained in each of these different chapters. So chapter 1, Before the Burning Times, this talks about the hammer of the witches, the witch trials, women in the Middle Ages, the witch trials and anti-Semitism. I think that's how you say it. Then the peak of the witch trials is chapter 2. So Germany and the witch craze. We have witch trials throughout Europe, the wounds of the past. Chapter 3, the role of gender in the witch trials. Women in the burning times, men in the burning times. Chapter 4, the legacy of the witch craze. So in this section, it talks about the echo of the witch craze through time and space. And that kind of takes you up to modern day. So it talks about the transformation of the witch's wound, how it's adapted, changed, grown in some ways, shrank in other ways, and just become something completely different from what it used to be. And then we go into part 2 of the book, Symptoms of the Witch Wound. So this is where you learn how to identify whether or not you're suffering from the witch wound through symptom analysis. So chapter 5, hiding in the spiritual broom closet. So watering down your magic, fear of sharing your gifts, belief that magic is dangerous. And then at the end of every section from this point on, you will get some prompts. So as an example for this particular section, the witch wound can show up as hiding your magical practices and interests in a broom closet, feelings of fear, shame and guilt about your magical spiritual beliefs, downplaying your practices to others, fear of being viewed as sinful, evil, crazy, dangerous, silly, or just weird. Hiding your altar, spiritual tools, jewelry, books, or even your tattoos. So there's just some examples. Then we go into chapter 6, muting your self-expression. Fear of speaking your truth. Fear of being seen and noticed. And again, you get some prompts. Feeling lost, stuck, or blocked. So this is chapter 7. Limiting beliefs, living for other people instead of authentically for yourself, fear of imperfection, money fears, and again some prompts. Ancestral wounding and past life memories is chapter 8. So ancestral witch wounds, past life memories. And again, some prompts on how that wound might show up. And then chapter 9, the wounded feminine. Disconnection from the divine feminine. Feeling unsafe around other women. And then again, some prompts. And then we go into part 3 of the book. So healing the witch wound. So now you've identified the symptoms. This is about healing those symptoms. So chapter 10, clearing energetic space. So ideas for releasing and cleansing. So take a cleansing ritual bath or shower, return unwanted energy to the earth. We've got performing a cord cutting and how that's beneficial, strengthening your boundaries. So setting personal boundaries, enforcing those boundaries, examples of what setting a boundary could look like, energetic boundaries and what they are and how to set them. And journal prompts for letting go and creating space. Full moon ritual for clearing and releasing. Then chapter 11, conjuring self-empowerment. So tend to your inner flame. Mine for creative gems. Attune to your abundance. Embrace the spirit of play and fun. Become the hero in your story. Connect and gather. Ritual for creating an empowerment sigil. Then chapter 12, ancestral healing. So reconnecting to your spiritual heritage, reigniting ancestral traditions, creating an ancestral altar, reflections for ancestral remembrance, ancestral healing ritual. And then healing the divine feminine is chapter 13. So honouring your embodiment of the divine feminine, embody the feminine archetypes. So that covers the maiden, the mother, the crone, the queen, the huntress, the lover, the mystic. Prioritising your rest. Start a self-love journal. Support the global feminist movement. Celebrate female friendships. Connect with your menstrual cycle. Divine feminine ritual bath. And then chapter 14, somatic healing. So creating a foundation of safety, helping emotions flow through movement, healing the throat energy centers, body connection ritual. And then earth healing, chapter 15. Attuning to the cycles of nature. This covers all of the different Sabbats throughout the year and gives you ideas of things you can do to align with those energies. Great for if you are a witch. Earth-based spiritual practices. So this covers herbalism, getting outside, communicating and connecting with trees and nature. The 4 elements ritual. So attuning yourself to air, fire, water and earth. And then chapter 16, moving into your magic and power. So coming out of the spiritual broom closet. Examples of how to speak about your magic to other people. That's actually really, really handy. So this has statements like, I'm doing well, thanks for asking. I've been getting more into my spiritual practice lately, which has been making me really happy. I can't hang out tonight because it's a full moon. Full moons are always my me time. I love crystals. I have crystal collections at home. Amethyst is my favourite stone, and so on and so forth. Trust your intuition. Create an empowered witch altar. Manifest your most magical life. New moon ritual for empowerment. And then the spiral path of the witch. So this is the closing statement the author had to conclude the book. So now for the positives. This book is well presented with a lovely artistic front cover. I mean, check out that front cover, it's awesome. It's an exceedingly flexible book, which is something that I really appreciated. I'm kind of one of those people where, you know, I will kind of do that. Some people might be going, oh, don't do that, but I do that, unfortunately. For those of us who have wrist problems or thumb problems or arthritis, it's great that this book is flexible. It's not heavy. So that was something I appreciated about this book. The book discusses a wide variety of witch wound symptoms to look out for. Each of these are discussed and broken down in an easy to understand way. They're not too complex. There's nothing in this book that made me pause and go, I don't understand that. So this book is very simple and easy to read and understand. Many witchcraft books today are very American focused, especially if the author is American, often failing to consider other forms of witchcraft globally. It was very refreshing that this author, Celeste, included witchcraft from all over the world. And it wasn't narrowed down to just American types of practices and different forms of witchcraft over there. It was a global discussion. There's witchcraft in here from Europe. There was Germany mentioned, England, Ireland, Scotland. There was America, you know, there was different countries, different types of witchcraft, and historically looking at all of that was just very fascinating. But more importantly, the book felt very inclusive and flexible and wasn't only narrowly focusing on American witchcraft, which is something I appreciated, and I took that to be a major positive. The history section of this book is very impressive. This clearly highlights the origins of the witch's wound and takes you on a journey through history that shows a timeline for the growth and transformation of the witch's wound to what it is now in modern day. That section, the history section, was just one of the best sections of this book in my opinion. But one thing I do want to note, and it is a slight negative, is she does state on the back that it isn't about looking historically at the atrocities of the past, but yet there's an entire part of this book that does exactly that. So I found that quite interesting and a little contradictory, but that section I'm glad was included in this book, and I did thoroughly enjoy it, and it was one of my favourite sections of the book. I do think this book is very simple and very beginner friendly. Some may find the topics in this book to be slightly triggering, so please bear that in mind, because you are going to be dealing with symptoms in this book that could actually be connected to mental health problems, imbalances in the body, trauma, and emotional negative build-ups. And when you are working through the sections of this book, some of those might come to the surface, and you might have to just be delicate with yourself, take your time, and just use your discernment as you're working through this book. But other than that, this is exceedingly beginner friendly. It's definitely an excellent book for if you're at the beginning of your journey and you're thinking to yourself, how do I tell people I'm a witch? How do I tell my parents, my friends, work colleagues, or, you know, my boss? How do I ask for time off work for a Sabbath? How do I embrace my witchy self without feeling ashamed or like I have to hide it from anybody? How do I embrace my light without dimming it for those around me? This will answer all of those questions. It will help you transition from beginner practitioner into somebody more confident about who they are, their practice and their choices, and how to tackle ignorant people with ignorant questions. So I do think it's really good for that. So somebody at the very beginning of their journey, a novice, beginner practitioner, this is a fantastic book. I also think this book would be really good to work with side by side with a book that walks you through shadow work, where you're ready to embrace your darker half rather than deny it. Look at all of the maybe not so pretty aspects of your personality or character flaws that you have. And while you're working with your shadow self, you can also be working on the witch wound. And because a lot of the symptoms in this could easily be about your shadow self, they kind of go hand in hand, in my opinion. Now, I wouldn't be doing that as a beginner or a novice. Shadow work is kind of for somebody who is a bit more experienced and is ready to take a look at themselves on a slightly darker level and not be afraid of who you are. That often isn't something a beginner is fully ready for, but when you feel you are ready, then definitely dip your toes in it. But like I said, use discernment, be delicate with yourself and take your time. And if at any point you're being really, really triggered, maybe take a step back and recognize you're not ready for that particular trauma or wound that you've come across. You can always come back to it later. There's no shame in that. Now for the negatives. I disliked the way the book was laid out. Part 2 discussed the various symptoms of the witch's wound, but you don't learn how to heal that until part 3 of the book, which means a lot of flipping back and forth in the book, especially if you only want to work on one symptom at a time, because you'll read the symptom in part 2 of the book, but then you have to go to part 3 to find the cure for that, the healing methods that she gives. So for me, the back and forth thing was very, very annoying, and that's not something I enjoyed about this book. I think it would have been better to discuss the symptom, talk about how to identify it, and then provide the specific healing techniques for that symptom all together in one zone of the book, keeping everything relevant and together. That's just my personal thought on that, and that's how I would have preferred the book to be laid out. Not everyone will see that as a negative, but that's just something I picked up on and just personally didn't like about this book. Many of the symptoms can easily be explained by medical conditions and trauma and any imbalances in the body. Not enough advice and warnings was given in this book in regards to this, and I found that to be ever so slightly irresponsible of the author, and also a little bit dangerous, because if you're coming across some symptoms in this book and she's telling you, oh, it's a symptom of this witch wound, but actually it could be a symptom of something else, I think maybe placing some information alongside that symptom that could point out, oh, it could also be this medical problem, or it can correlate to this imbalance in the body or this trauma. Seek extra help here in those cases if you're not sure. I think that would have been just a nice touch and more responsible of the author. So that was something I noted and kind of got slightly irritated with in this book, because like I said, it's slightly irresponsible, and there are a lot of medical conditions out there where some of the symptoms in this book, it could easily be that medical problem. And if you are seeing symptoms on a regular basis, then please seek medical attention. Please go and consult a doctor, and like I said, use discernment with this book. The healing treatments for the various symptoms were fairly basic and nothing groundbreaking or new in my professional opinion. As I progressed through the book, it became clear that Celeste isn't a qualified healer and didn't work with other healers when writing this book. That just became very apparent and clear. She might be a qualified healer now, or she might have taken on healing classes since writing this book, or may have been doing one at the time of writing this book, but it just came across as there wasn't actually any proper healing techniques in this book. Most of it was meditate, take a cleansing bath, cord cut. It was very, very simple witchy things. It wasn't anything extraordinary, and it wasn't anything that went deeply into healing trauma, symptoms, and grounding yourself when you're in a chaotic state. And actually, grounding wasn't mentioned too much in this book. There was a small section about connecting with trees and nature, but not a in-depth look at the differences between earthing, grounding, and connecting with nature and absorbing energy from the natural magnetic force of the earth and how to stabilize yourself. So I think more of that could have been included. And again, some very up-to-date healing techniques could have been included in this book that just weren't. By the end of the book, I personally wasn't convinced that the witch wound exists in the way it was presented in this book. I felt that in places the book could be seen as slightly fear-mongering, and overall I didn't personally enjoy the book as a whole. I took nothing new from it, and I do deem this book as very new agey. The other thing I noticed about this book is it focuses a lot on the feminine divine, and I'm one of these practitioners now that's been around the block a long time, guys. I've been a practitioner for 33 years of my life, 34 years this year, and there seems to be an awful lot of focus on the divine feminine and not a lot of focus on the divine masculine. A lot of books are unbalanced because of that, and they almost come across as man-hating. And while I wouldn't say Celeste man-hated in this book, because there was a mention of, you know, how the witch trials impacted men, but that was a small section compared to an entire chapter later on that talks about reconnecting with the feminine divine. What about reconnecting to the masculine divine? What about balancing those polarities and energies in your life and embracing the masculine aspects of yourself? Because we contain both energies within us. And if you're always focusing on the feminine divine, then you're not in balance. That's just a fact. So I think there could have been a section in this right after connecting with the feminine divine and healing that wound, to also focusing on healing the masculine divine and connecting with that aspect and any damage that was done there, because we know men were persecuted during the witch trials. Not as much as women, granted, but they were still persecuted, they still struggled, they still lost loved ones to those trials, and that created emotional scarring there. So I do think men should have been included. For that reason, I do think this book is ever so slightly unbalanced and maybe a tiny bit sexist as well. And I don't think this book would be inclusive to men. I think it focuses way too much on women, and I think it is written for a female practitioner to work with, which is unfair, because I do think that if you are a believer in the witch wound and you believe you have it, you could be male or female, and a lot of the techniques in this focus more on healing for a woman, not for a man. So that was another negative for me. Because of how new agey this book is, because of the lack of balance in this book, the slightly irresponsible information, and the symptoms correlating more, in my opinion, towards medical health problems than actually explaining to me that there is indeed a witch wound. And because of the way the book was presenting the information, I personally didn't enjoy it, so therefore I will not be keeping this book. It hasn't made it into my magical library, and I score this book a 5 out of 10. I do think it would be really good for a beginner. I definitely think this is a great book for those of you out there ready to start your shadow journey and to get into healing trauma. But I also think there's slightly better books out there for that, and there are actually 2, and I can't for the life of me remember their names, but if anybody wants to know, please comment and I will I will post about the titles of those books. I don't actually personally own them. A friend of mine does, but she worked through the first one and said it was fantastic the way it was written, and that dealt with different traumas, different blockages, different problems spiritually, and how to approach those symptoms, heal them, and work from a spiritual perspective in order to deal with those issues and become a more whole, healed person. And she said that it was just absolutely phenomenal, that book. So if anybody is interested in knowing what that is, please let me know. If anyone has read this book, please let me know your thoughts and opinions. I would really like to open an honest, friendly conversation about it, and I'd love to know your thoughts. Please leave comments on the video, and I do check every day, guys, so if you do leave a comment, I will reply really quickly. And thank you so much for watching till the end. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me that thumbs up, click the bell. YouTube will tell you when my next video comes out. If you'd like to offer like, love and support to my channel, or just give me a little tip for this video, you can do that through my PayPal link or my Amazon wishlist. And thank you to those who do support me. I really do appreciate it, guys. If you want to contact me for any of my magical services, healing services, or divination services, you can contact me via all the links provided in the description of the video, which is Facebook, Instagram, X, Tumblr, and email. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I will see you in my next video. Take care of yourselves. Blessed be.